faces that I recognize, and even if we aren't really all together, it sort of feels like we're together, and that's very nice. So why don't we start with the, let's see here. Yeah, I have this, but where did it go? Here it is. Okay. So, Fifi will now play a short video, right, Fifi, that provides the Zoom meeting instructions. So you'll do that now?
A Zoom meeting pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N-2920, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being live streamed on the CCTA website. The chair will call upon members, staff, and other speakers by name. Please speak clearly and state your name before giving comments or remarks. Persons participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. Members participating by Zoom wishing to speak should physically raise their hand and unmute their mic when called upon. Members should remute their mics when done speaking. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the Raise Hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. A 30-second warning will be provided. After 3 minutes, staff will lower their hand and mute their mic. Participants via phone will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organization, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received in accordance with the COVID-19 Special Notice for Public Comment Guidelines are printed on the meeting agenda. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
Okay, thank you. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you'll join me, we'll start it now. I pledge allegiance, if you'll join me, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did anyone actually join me, or did people not turn on their sound?
We're
Yeah, I
muted.
think we're just on mute.
You're just on mute. Do you want to do it again? No? Okay. So we have done it. So the next item is introductions. And Fifi, will you lead introductions as you take the roll call?
When I call you, please confirm your attendance to this meeting by saying present when you hear your last name. Charlie Anderson. Charlie Anderson. Mary Brenz.
Here.
Jean Clark.
Present.
Bridget Cooney.
Here.
Lisa Hammond.
Present.
Vi Ibarra. Vi Ibarra. Vi, are you there?
Can you hear me?
You can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay, my headset must be faulty. Thank you.
Rashida Kamara.
Present.
Thank you. Kim Ridgway.
Present.
Thank you. Deanna Perry,
Present.
Lori Reese Brown, Lori Reese Brown, Hello Smith,
Present.
Laura Timothy, Vice Chair Michael Dagelli, Vice Chair Michael Dagelli,
Michael Dalgelli, present.
thank you, and Chair Abelson.
Present.
Thank you, Chair Abelson. Please note that Member Reese Brown and Member Timothy are absent.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Fifi, have we received any public comments?
We have
And is
not.
there anyone wishing to speak during public comment on an item that is not on the agenda? If so, please raise your hand and I or staff will call upon you. They can raise their hand via the raise hand feature, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anybody?
I do not.
Okay, I guess there aren't any people wishing to speak at this time. So we'll go on to the next item. Let's see. So the next item is the item called number 1 on the agenda, which is approval of the summary of actions. Are there any comments on this item?
This is Vice Chair Dalgelli.
Yes.
I want to make a notation that I attempted to enter the meeting, but for some reason there was a technical glitch. I would like that to be noted, not just that I was absent, but that
Okay.
I attempted. Yeah, something happened. I contacted Fifi about it, but I'm not sure what happened, whether I pressed wrong numbers or something, but it said that the meeting was closed when I called in, so.
Technical difficulty.
Yeah.
We can call it. Okay.
Noted.
Are there any comments on the summary of action? Not seeing any. Are there any motion? Is there a motion? Somebody want to make a motion to accept those?
I move approval to accept them. This is Lisa Hammond.
Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second?
I second. This is Jean Clark.
Thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. And I think we have to take a roll call vote, don't we?
Yes, Chair Abelson.
Would you do that, initiate that? Phoebe?
Yes.
Thank
When
you.
I call your name, please state your vote by saying yay to indicate support, nay to indicate opposition, or abstain to withhold your vote. Member Bruns?
Yay.
Member Clark?
Yay.
Member Cooney?
Yay.
Member Hammond?
Yay.
Member Ibarra?
Yay.
Member Kamara?
Yay.
Member Ridgway?
Abstain.
Member Perry?
Yay.
Member Smith?
Yay.
Vice Chair Dalgelli?
Abstain.
And Chair Abelson.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously by all members present, with members Kamara and Vice Chair Dalgelli abstaining.
Thank you. Okay, so
Sorry,
motion-
that should have been Ridgway abstaining rather than Kamara.
Sorry,
Correct.
I wrote it right in the wrong box there. You guys are right next to each other. My apologies. Member Ridgway and Vice Chair Dowdjelly abstaining.
Okay, so motion carried with 2 abstentions. The next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. And that consists of the roster, which is attached, a schedule of upcoming meetings. And those are the 2 items. Are there any comments? Okay, is there a motion?
Chair Wilson,
Vice
this is
Chair.
an informational item.
Oh, we don't, okay. So are there any comments? There could be still comments, I believe. So hearing none, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is in the category of regular agenda items. And in this section, the first one is the coordinated public transit, human service transportation plan. And there is staff from Metropolitan Transportation Commission who will present the 2018 plan, recommended regional priorities and coordinated strategies. Peter, would you like to introduce this item?
Sure, happy to, Chair. Drennan Shelton from MTC is here. She is the staff person for the region who is working on the Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Transportation Plan. And she is presenting this item today to get some feedback from you all. So Drennan, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for having me here today with you. I really appreciate it. Yes, so as Peter says, I'm about to kick off the update of the region's coordinated public transit human services transportation plan, called the coordinated plan for short. The coordinated plan is a document that sets a blueprint for how we prioritize
I think we're having sound problems.
income populations.
Can't hear you. You're going in and out.
I apologize. Maybe if I stop my video, that will help a little bit. So let's try that. Okay, so like I was attempting to say, we're about to kick off the update of the region's coordinated plan. And the coordinated plan is a document that sets a blueprint for how we prioritize funding for the transportation needs of older adults, people with disabilities, and low-income populations. And a big part of that plan is to hear from different populations and including PCCs to document transportation struggles, problems, issues, and hear about solutions and projects that could solve those problems. And, you know, I'm here, it's sort of a regular thing that we do at MTC is to update this plan, but it feels particularly strange right now because of the COVID emergency that we're all sort of living under that has presented new transportation challenges. So, you know, we've seen some improvements in under regular times, but things continue to be a struggle for our most vulnerable transportation dependent populations. Before I ask you about transportation issues that are still out there, I wanted to run you through a little bit of background on the coordinated plan, just to remind everybody what is in it. Phoebe, if we could go to the next slide, please. So the coordinated plan is a federal requirement, and the plan focuses on the travel needs, like I said, of older adults, low-income populations, and people with disabilities. A lot of outreach is done for this. And so we want to be able to document the transportation challenges and fund those highest need projects. Next slide, please. So I think most transportation plans are pretty boring. And if you haven't looked at this plan, I would encourage you to do so because I don't think it's boring. It's a great educational resource, particularly I think for PCC members. In it, you will find regional demographic information on older adults, people with disabilities, low-income populations. There's a great inventory of the types of services available in our region. There's, of course, the summary of gaps and solutions, which you're going to help me out with today. And then recommendations for agencies like CCTA and transit agencies. Next slide, please. So I'm going to run quickly through these big picture recommendations that came out of the plan from 2018. And so as I go through them, you can sort of think about where Contra Costa County has been making big strides and where some more work needs to be done. So the first top priority that came out of the plan was that all counties of the Bay Area should implement countywide mobility management programs that at a minimum include countywide travel training and information and referral services. And I know a lot of work is being done on that right now in Contra Costa County. The second strategy is to improve paratransit. We made a number of things like how to bring Medicare dollars to transit agencies to recoup some of those costs that are sort of put on the public transit agencies, to have enhanced eligibility and coordinated policies for ADA paratransit, and to expand same-day trip programs for more spontaneous travel for those who depend on ADA paratransit. Next slide, please. Number 3 is that we recommended that in areas where transit is less available, that other solutions are explored, things like expanding car share and ride share programs and low-income auto loan programs, which Contra Costa County has. You're one of 2 counties in our region that actually has a program like that. So I think that's pretty great. Strategy 4 was something that was kicking around the region for more than years, and that was a means-based transit fare program. This would be discount transit fares for low-income adults, which I'm happy to say recently kicked off in the form of the Clipper Start program that started back in July. This provides a low-income discount for some of our Bay Area transit agencies. Currently, the discount is only offered on BART, Golden Gate, Muni, and Caltrain, but 17 additional operators, including County Connection, Tri-Delta, WestCat, and AC Transit, will begin offering that discount in January. So that's pretty exciting. Next slide, please. And then the last one is that we had asked agencies to formalize their equity policies for shared and future mobility programs, so that more people could have access to these types of transportation and mobility programs that exist, that are still being developed, that will be developed in the future. And that's sort of been a pretty popular thing under COVID. Lots of agencies are doing this now. Okay, so next slide, please. So I ran through those things pretty quickly, but I want to make sure that you do have my contact information so that you can give me feedback today, but also in the future. This plan update is going to be going on until 2022. There's going to be lots of opportunities to provide outreach or to provide your input as we do outreach. And so today, now, as I hear from you, I'd like you to tell me about the struggles with providing transportation to those 3 target populations, things that your constituents experience, things that you experience, and think about things under COVID, but also before COVID, because hopefully things will eventually go back to normal, or we'll have a new normal. And so with that, I just would like to hear from you all now. Thank you.
Okay, so for those providing input, if you could as you're speaking, turn your mute off. And then when you're done speaking, if you could turn it back on. Is there anybody who would like to start?
And
And
I had a
yeah,
Oops, two people are talking.
Real quick, I did include in the packet that you received the list of gaps and solutions that we collected last time. So you can always build off of those as well.
Where is that? Where's that list?
It's in the packet. Yeah, there you go. It's pages and pages of things. Sorry to interrupt you, Lisa.
Okay.
Oh, that's okay. I just had a clarifying question. So are we doing this update with COVID in mind or not with COVID in mind? Because that's changing the whole thing. So I don't know. I'm just wondering about doing the update now. I know it's a requirement while we're in the middle of a pandemic and everybody's in completely uncharted territory.
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge, I will say, but we're doing it with both in mind. We want to be able, I mean, no one knows what the future will bring. Hopefully things will eventually go back to what we knew as normal, or the one thing that my agency is hoping is that some of these early findings from input from you can be fed not just into the coordinated plan, but also into another effort that MTC is leading, the Blue Ribbon Transit Recovery Task Force. There's lots of work on there by the transit agencies. And so we're hoping to hear from you on things under COVID, but also not under COVID.
Are you finished, Lisa? Are you finished, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak right now? Not hearing anyone, I'll add something at this time. I think it's very interesting that we're talking about this and we're having a pandemic, because I think the presence of the pandemic brings up a lot of issues that we maybe wouldn't have thought about had it not been so. And one of the issues that I've noticed, and in fact, I've had the issue myself, is food, access to food. And there's nothing in anything I ever noticed before, at least not knowingly, about the importance of access to food. And yet it's probably the most important thing we do is eat. Without that, we don't survive. So if there were something added in there about that, I think it would be really useful. And then the other related thing, I think, if you look at what's actually happened in the pandemic for people who have difficulty traveling, and I'm one of those people, basically I don't travel because I don't have any way to do it. And I'm part of the population that is supposed to should shelter in place. And it's very hard to do basic functions that way. And so the criteria for paratransit doesn't exactly fit that very well. And one of the ways it doesn't fit it very well is when you need, if you need to go somewhere the same day, it just lets you go to what are called essential services, which I'm not even sure is related to anything other than somebody's decision about that's where they would draw the line. So the general category I would think that one would come up with, if one were to come up with a category, would be to say operation during special times such as a pandemic. because it might, maybe next time we have a pandemic, it's not about illness, it's about something else. Maybe it's about fire, you know, we don't really know what it might be about, but it could be anything. But still, the people who are in the categories that are covered by your plan need to be able to get around and do sort of things that are part of basic living. So if I were to come up with a category, I don't know if it's there or not now, but it would have something to do with people being able to maintain a normal life. And then that would have to be defined. But, it'd be things like access to food, access to healthcare, things like that. And I actually think that the paratransit agencies that I'm familiar with have done a fantastic job of making do with what they've got and then making it work the best they can. I really do think they've done a good job. And I'm very impressed with the work that's been done that way. But it's not in any plan, I don't think, to do it that way. So putting it in a plan might be helpful. So that's what I would say. How about somebody else? Does someone else want to speak? This is a pretty
Yes,
important.
I would.
Othello? Uh-huh.
Yes. Yes. First of all, I'd just like to ditto everything Janet, has said. But I also have a question. An attachment B, line 34, page 34, line 184, you mentioned EHS and a self-funded loan program. What is EHS and what is this loan program and how is it accessed? I guess that's 3 questions.
I didn't catch page 34.
Page 34, line 184.
184. Oh, that's the Employment Human Services Department in Contra Costa County. It's what used to be called Welfare to Work programs.
And okay, but can you explain what the self-funding part is about, or do I have to contact them?
No, I can give you a little information, Pello. It's
okay.
The program was started by the county. Boy, I've been here 15 years, 16 years, and it started before I got here, so maybe 20 years now. And like Drennan said, it was started as part of a CalWorks Welfare to Work program, and I believe, at least initially, they may still work with a local community bank to help provide the loans or maybe do the underwriting of the loans. But it's self-funded by, they got some initial seed money and then they made loans. And then as the loans are paid back, those go back into the program. There is a small interest rate. Their loans are generally less than $5,000, and they're generally 2 to 3 years, I think. So they're small loans meant to purchase used vehicles. And then the county—
$5,000, Peter?
Yeah, so the county also provided vehicles through their fleet after they retired their fleet vehicles. So these are vehicles with maybe, I don't know, John, 80, 90,000 miles on them, probably fairly old, 5 or 6 years old. And they were able to provide those to people. People would basically purchase those with these loans that qualified. That's why the loan amounts are small, as they're used vehicles and they fall within that value, that market. They can't go out and buy a new vehicle with that, obviously. So the program's really good. It helps people establish credit lines. And then I think over the years, what I read was they've only had 2 defaults out of all of the loans they provided. They require the person when they get their loan to take a basic maintenance class, learn how to check the tires, learn how to change the oil, that kind of stuff. So that basic maintenance needs. So it's a really good program. So they do have a website that describes it. It's called Keys, KEYS, and don't ask me, it's an acronym. I can't think of what it stands for right now.
Okay. Any stats on how many loans they've made to
I don't have
justify,
any.
to
You'd have
put
to
the
go to their-
two defaults in perspective?
Yeah, you'd have to go to their website for that. I think that information might be on there.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Anyone else want to
This is
say anything?
Rashida.
Rashida.
Yeah, Jan. Yeah, this is Rashida with County Connection. I did have, I guess, one question. Since we're looking at both with the pandemic and without the pandemic, something to explore. When the EOCs or Department of Emergencies had opened up, and it looked as if that they needed more transportation services than what taxis could give them, they reached out to the transit agencies. Some transit agencies were able to assist, some transit agencies were not able to assist with the transporting of COVID passengers. These transports required specialized training, they required additional PPEs, they required drivers almost kind of like standing by for long hours on an as needed basis. I think it's important that, one, transportation is recognized as being pivotal to this need, but that, two, fundamental protocols. Right now, John and I are working on an MOU, but that might not be the case with everybody, but fundamental protocols that would guarantee that transportation companies, when they get involved in the service, one, don't feel as if they can't get involved in the service, but two, protocols are set up not only through the health department, but that payment is being able to be made like across the board, even if it's a standard type of payment structure that is used so that transportation companies can all get involved in this. When there's only one or two or three or four participating, then it's disproportionate to the needs that arises across all the different counties. And I'm just talking about, all the counties that are represented here. So it's disproportionate. And then you find vehicles that are participating going long distances to assist in different areas. So I think that this should be a fundamental service. We are writing this as it's happening. This is a perfect opportunity to use this pandemic that we have, some of the protocols that we've set up, to engage all transit agencies to be a pivotal part of the EOCs and the DOCs of the counties of the state, knowing that funding will also be available to them and that there are standard practices across the board where everybody can engage in when it comes to transportation services. And I think that this is a perfect opportunity to put that type of plan in there. So if you know that everybody can pivot and do Meals on Wheels, if you know everybody can pivot and participate in the lunch programs of their communities, if you know that everybody can pivot in essential services by taking people to doctor's offices, if we have to write protocols and procedures that help with drive-by testing sites so people don't have to worry about us dumping the passenger there for 30 minutes and then coming back to get them, but kind of creating protocols that are not kind of mixed and made complicated by ADA rules and regulations, because ADA rules and regulations are kind of like all what we really know. So we're now trying to bend it and manipulate it for this pandemic. And and not everybody necessarily is on the same page when it comes to, pivoting for that very specific medical need. As Janet said, the next pandemic might be a fire-like pandemic. It might be, I don't know, it might be something else. Lord knows what it could be. We didn't think it was going to be this. But having that type of standard protocol where all the transit agencies know that they can get involved, all the transit agencies knows that they're going to get one sort of training associated with it, whether it's a big transit agency or a small urban transit agency. They know that they're going to participate with all of their EOCs and DOCs. And we also know that there's proper funding. All the funding agencies that are responsible to divvy up funding knows that they are going to be providing such fundings for everybody to participate in. Was that really long? Did that make sense?
It was fine.
Good, just long enough. Rashida, I have a question. I think you may have end, but when you're talking about transportation providers, are you also referring to private transportation providers or just the public transit agencies?
Mute, Rashida.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, so I'm talking about all the private agencies that have to work with the public agencies. So if one public agency is going to be involved, then all public agencies, will be involved. After all, they're supposed to be working with all of public health. So yeah, all of public transportation should be involved. Now, if there happens to be private transportation agencies that work and represent these public agencies, then yes, they should be able to participate. But if it's a public health, if it's public, the EOCs and DOCs, then yes, that should be part and parcel of that.
Thank you.
John? Oh, I'm sorry, Janet. John has his hands up.
Chair Abelson, if I may. Go ahead then. This is John Cunningham with the county. Rashida raises a very good point. It's a large issue, and I'm just going to touch on a couple of things very briefly. We actually talked about the issues that Rashida raised over the past 2, 3, 4 years. The Sheriff's Emergency Operations Center, we hold regular transportation meetings, and we do tabletop exercises. We speculate about what the needs are during a disaster. And one of the issues we talked about is one of the ones Rashida laid out there. It's like, okay, how can transit operators provide service during an incident? At the time we were thinking more along the lines of an earthquake. I don't know that we talked about a pandemic, but here we are. The problems that we talked about are happening now. And one of the problems we flagged early was the contracts that the transit operators hold with the transportation providers. As a public agency can, say A, B, C, D, and E, but the people providing the transportation are locked into these contracts. And so it's going to be a long, slow process to memorialize and establish as process the things that Rashida laid out. And that's a great idea. And I think it needs to be done. I think MTC through the coordinated plan, that would be a good way to lend some standardization to that and sort of get the ball rolling, so that when these contracts do come up and they do go out for solicitation, that these things are taken into account with the contracts. And that was one of the things taken into account. As Rashida pointed out, some transit operators could provide service, some couldn't. Really, they had to go back to their contracts, go back to their contractors, and see what's in writing, see what they're comfortable with, and see what they could negotiate. And so, yeah, if we could get the ball rolling on that, so that we didn't, make it up as we go along, like Rashida mentioned, that would be very, very beneficial. So, yeah, that's all I have. Thank you.
If I could step in, am I muted? Okay. One of the concerns that I've had, and it's been a problem, is that in some ways the existing paratransit operators, who are the only ones that I could get a ride with, they've been to me, very creative in figuring out ways. So, if you can't get to the food, then bring the food to you. Meals on Wheels was altered to do that. For example, I now get Meals on Wheels, which I thought I would never in a million years do. But some of the modes of transportation are not accessible to everybody. Whereas there are a lot of people who maybe could have gotten, or maybe did get around on Uber or Lyft or some system like that, if you use a wheelchair, you can't really get around like that. So some of these solutions leave out people. And I think one of the things that whatever plan that is we come up with needs to do is accommodate all people that are in the category, that are covered by the plan, not just some of them. And that's a real problem, I think. For example, with medical care, you still can't get a same day trip, as far as I know, at least where I am, as far as I know. But you can go on Uber. So if you're paying for Uber, then some people are covered and some people aren't. So the solutions need to cover solutions for all people, not just able-bodied people, for example. So that's all I really wanted to say about that. I actually, though, really think that we need to give a lot of kudos to the existing operators, because I think they really did a good job with what they had. And I say that as a person who's dependent upon their services. I mean, I actually, just to give you a personal story, I got called by my by East Bay Paratransit, and they asked me how I was doing and what did I need. And I said, well, I'm doing pretty good, except I can't get food. And the next thing I know, they brought me food. Now, would you have put that in a plan? I would never have thought to do that. but they saw their role as taking care of, I think what it was that they saw their role, and I can't speak to the other operators because I didn't have I'm just not experienced, but other people could. I think it's a matter of saying we need to take care of people, and then making sure that people are taken care of in the way that they need to be taken care of, for starting out with basic essential life services, that kind of thing. So I actually think that given our ADA rules that are so rigid looking and so forth, that in fact the operators did a lot and provided a lot of service to people who really needed it. So if I had to, I would give them an A+, the operators, on how they responded to this pandemic. I really can't say that strongly enough. But so this, how that speaks to this is that I would say that this system needs to think about what that looks like, and how rigid rules, there have to be ways to get around rigid rules and just provide the services that people need to stay alive. And I'll stop there. Somebody else want to say something?
This is Mary.
Yes, Mary. Hi.
With the La Miranda Spirit. The Senior Mobility Action Council had scheduled a speaker from Uber Wave, who has accessible taxis or accessible vehicles, accessible to wheelchairs. And then they canceled the presentation, I guess, because of all the stuff that was going on around whether Uber Lyft drivers were going to be contractors or not. So we didn't actually have that conversation, but it's my understanding that there are some accessible vehicles out there, Uber Wave vehicles, Uber Lyft vehicles. I'm wondering if anybody knows how extensive that is.
It's not.
It's not. So my hope would be that in the planning going forward for the coordinated plan, and so anyhow, all planning going forward, that there would be a way to encourage a more widespread accessible vehicles in all areas for Uber and Lyft. If there was some way to promote that.
Lyft are, I don't think that the vendor is what I was talking about. What I'm saying is that there needs to be a way for people to get around. It doesn't have to be a particular vendor or.
Well, the reason I brought that up is because they are out there 24/7. And so promoting them to encourage or drive somehow, having them have more drivers with accessible vehicles, I think would be a tremendous service to the community for people, particularly in wheelchairs.
You finished?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would someone else like to speak?
This is Lisa.
Lisa, hi.
Yeah. Hi. So I think what I'm hearing here, Drennan, from everybody is just the key is really flexibility. Flexibility for transit agencies to do things that may not be within their charter, flexibility to do different things. And then the other part of it is flexibility on the funding sources. So a lot of what's provided is dictated by the funding agency in terms of what you can do, how many times you can do it. When you end up in a situation like a pandemic, a fire, an emergency, any number of things, all of that goes out the window. So for example, it's not transportation related, but we had to completely change our service model at Choice in Aging to provide services not at Choice in Aging, because we can't have people coming to congregate care, but we're still able to be reimbursed for care that we're providing in the community, whether we're going to our board and care homes for our participants, their personal homes. So that's just an example of how the funding needs to be flexible when something like this happens, because people are not going to be doing what they're normally doing. People are not going to be going places as normal, providing services as normal. And, you know, we did a couple of things with the paratransit, well, the vans that we have that provide transportation for our participants were used for other uses in the beginning, as mostly delivering food. So we don't do that.
So the same thing I was talking about, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the 5310 program was flexible. We called them and they permitted us to do delivery, pickup and delivery, and we could count those as rides delivered on our reporting. And the CDBG grant did the same thing. We could still claim our expenses. So they really did pivot very nicely.
And I'd just like to add a plug for CCTA and Measure J. We did the same thing. We were very flexible with our Measure J funds in the transportation for seniors and people with disability categories to allow them for food delivery, as opposed to moving the food rather than moving the people in this case.
Thank you, Peter. Anybody else? So if I were to summarize what we've said, I guess what we think is that the issue of special circumstances such as pandemics should be included in this plan, wouldn't it? Is that what I'm hearing? Is it not what I'm hearing?
I think you're right. So yes, I've taken down all of your notes, and yes, I think if you'll allow me a moment of just editorial comment, I do want to say that I think Contra Costa County, as someone who gets to see all 9 counties in the Bay Area, I think Contra Costa County has done the best under the pandemic circumstances. And I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you today, I promise. It was impressive to see. Other counties really struggled to bridge the gap between emergency and transit. And I know you all have your issues, but my gosh, it's like night and day. And so kudos to all of you.
And you know, one area we haven't talked about, I'm not sure if it is within the jurisdiction of what you're doing, but is fixed route operators, because they did the same thing. For example, at least in my area, I can only speak to what I know, but for example, eliminating fares was one of the things when people, in a period when people didn't have jobs, and doing, modifying the vehicles so that people were not exposed to COVID. So I think that is I think, as you said, that is the model that we need to be ready for, and we don't know what the disaster is. That it could be heat. That's one I could think of easily. But because we know the climate's getting hotter, we experience symptoms of that. Anyway, I hope I think if I may say, I think we would look towards that kind of a adaptation of the plan to cover these things that we never in a million years would have known to put in there. Thank you. Anyone want to have a final word? Okay. Well, I just want to say thank you for coming, or not coming, probably. Where are you? Are you at home?
Oh, I'm in Berkeley. Yes, I'm at home in Berkeley.
Yeah, I still use those words, but thank you for attending our meeting and enabling us to share this information with you. And good luck in what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. You're not looking for any, this is just information, I believe, right? Yes. Okay, thank you.
That's right.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is updates on the Accessible Transportation Strategy, or ATS plan status. Peter, this is yours, isn't this item?
Yeah, I'll just give you a quick update. Since your last meeting, we've had our first policy advisory committee meeting, which I think went really well. The folks that were on that particular committee were very engaged and asked a lot of great questions, and gave some real good feedback. So we're really excited and felt really good about that meeting. We've wrapped up our first round of public outreach. I don't have all the numbers in front of me. There was over 1,000 surveys, which is a great number. I'm super happy with that we got back in 3 different languages: Mandarin, Spanish, and English. So the consultant, Nelson Nygaard, is in the process of compiling all that information. They did provide some updates to our Project TAC meeting, which we have several of you on the Zoom here are part of that. So feel free to speak to that. I didn't happen to be at that meeting, so I can't speak to it. We are preparing for our second outreach effort, which is a telephone town hall call that we hope to get good participation with, which will be in late October. So that's being planned and scheduled right now. Let's see, other outreach that was done was there was, I believe, 4 focus groups held. And one of those, I believe, was in the San Ramon area. One was with Lighthouse for the Blind with a group of folks. There was one with students from Diablo Valley College from their disabilities services. And another one was in San Pablo, I believe, or El Cerrito. I can't remember which. So John, do you want to, so the county is our partner in this, John Cunningham. John, do you want to fill in any blanks or provide more detail?
No, you really hit all the points that I was going to touch on, Peter. That would, the one big thing is the outreach. As Peter mentioned, we're wrapping up the first phase of outreach, and as he mentioned, we got 1,000 respondents. We had focus groups, stakeholder interviews. We were really worried with the COVID shutdown that we weren't going to be able to fulfill our outreach requirements and what we wanted to do. And I think that actually the access that we can have, like we have right now, has enabled us to reach out to more people. I think there's still some value in face-to-face, but we really, we sort of re-engineered our outreach effort to maximize the number of people that we got in touch with. So that ended up not being a problem. And then, as Peter mentioned, the Policy Advisory Committee, that's really only going to meet 3 or 4 times during this whole study. I think the first meeting was very successful. It's as people on this call, this meeting know, this service area is very complex, just to the different types of agencies involved in the different revenue streams and different requirements. Chair Abelson mentioned some earlier, the ADA paratransit requirements, sometimes they don't match up with the needs. And so we have this Policy Advisory Committee, and this first meeting, we really focused on educating them and bringing them up to speed in this very complex service area. So I think it went very well, and we're hoping to continue that with the next few meetings with that group. And that's really all I had to
add. Thanks, John. I was going to add something else and now I forgot what it was. So maybe it'll pop into me if you start asking questions.
Next steps, maybe?
One was actually the other kind of cool thing about this is we were able to do all this outreach through surveys and Zoom and stuff. And it actually saved a bunch of money on the budget. So we're talking about doing a second. We had only originally budgeted for 1 town hall meeting. Now we're talking about doing a second town hall meeting to kind of, once the recommendations are done, to kind of bounce the recommendations off of people in the town hall. So in a way, we got really good outreach, plus we saved money to do even more outreach. So
sounds like a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Great. Should we ask for questions here now?
Yep.
Does anybody have a question or a comment on this process? Not hearing anything. I think we need to say thank you for doing that. Sounds like it's moving along really well.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, Mary.
Do you want us to advertise the town hall and see
once
if
we get everything, absolutely. Once we get everything, kind of the date and everything set up, we will advertise that. All right, we will give that information out for you to push out to all your folks.
Anybody else? Okay, I think we're done with that item. The next item on our agenda is the operator's update on current services provided during the COVID crisis. Peter, are you going to start this?
So, at our last meeting 2 months ago, we kind of started just, roundtable providing information as service providers. This kind of talk about delivering food and what everybody did, and it was really interesting, and I think a lot of people got some good information. So we talked about in future meetings doing the same thing. So there's really no there's no method to this. I think it's just an opportunity to kind of do a roundtable stuff, maybe over the last 2 months since our last meeting that you've seen from a change perspective as far as COVID, any policy changes that you're seeing, any new procedures that you've implemented that the group would be interested in hearing about. So Janet, if you want, I don't know how you want to do it, just go around.
I could just go around and shall we just go around and to everyone and see if they have anything to say?
Sure,
That
just
may,
have people raise hands and see if they want to bring.
or yeah. I can start out. I know in my area, we didn't initially do very much with Zoom-like meetings. And now we're starting to do more of it. So I think what that's an example of is some of the agencies that are slower to react to new ideas like Zoom are doing so. And they're finding exactly what you said, that it's a really useful tool. And a number of places that I spend practically all my time in Zoom, I feel like. But a number of people that I've spoken to think that this might be the meeting of the future. You know, we won't necessarily go back to the way we did things for everything, because we're getting large attendances at meetings, and it seems to be working pretty well in most regards. In some regards not, but I'll leave it at that. Would somebody else like to? I can't go around the table because there isn't one, but I do have the participants list. I'll go down. Terry Ann, do you want to add anything?
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Okay. Bridget?
I don't have too much to add. I know that we are one of the ones that's getting a little bit slower start to the Zoom, but it definitely seems like something that people are starting to show some interest in that were initially resistant. So we're hoping to continue going there.
Deanna?
I just want to say I really like the Zoom. I like the fact that it cuts down on travel time, and I don't feel like I'm wasting time out of the office to travel to meetings. We have done a couple of training classes here internally in our office from our desks instead of gathering around the big boardroom table, which has been, I think it's been a lot better. I think there was more participation. Everyone I talked to had positive feedback about it, and I just really liked it.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. I thought I could go down the participant list, but it's changing. Let's see. Fifi, do you want to add anything?
Not at this time, Chair Wilson.
Okay. I couldn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I said not at this time, Chair Wilson.
Okay. I'm surprising you, I know, because usually I wouldn't.
I know, usually you don't call me. Well, I can say that Zoom meetings have been instrumental in allowing CCTA's committees to meet.
Thank you. That's important. Let's see. Jean?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Me from San Pablo. We're really kind of doing the same thing that we have been doing. We are assisting with, meal pickup on Tuesdays, and we're doing massive meal deliveries on Fridays for the county. And we're still operating Monday through Friday for essential services to things like the bank, doctors, grocery stores, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And do you have the same number of clients using your services?
No, it's way down.
Way down?
It's way down. Yeah, we've gone from 2 to 3 buses a day, depending on the day, to about 1. Yeah. A lot of people just aren't comfortable going out.
Right. Let's see. So next is John Cunningham. I'm just going down the participant list here.
I have nothing else to add. Thank you.
Okay. Oop, the list keeps moving on me. Kim?
I don't have anything additional to add, just ditto to what everyone else said.
I think you do one thing that's different than the rest of us that you're doing via Zoom. Your evening activities. I think that's,
Oh,
you want to bring that up?
yeah,
That's really
but that's not
interesting.
work related.
That's okay. It's an example. And you
Just,
do a great job.
well, thank you. As Janet knows, I do theater outside of AC Transit, so we're doing a lot of online content. But I'm sorry, I am going to add something to it. When we first started doing the Zoom thing, we saw a lot of participation, but there was a lot of uneasiness with it. And I think the more that people are using it, the easier it is for folks that have to use the phone to call in or are able to actually call in with video. So I think that the more we do it and the more people get comfortable with it, the easier it's going to become for everyone.
Thank you. Lisa? Lisa?
Hi.
You there?
So
Hi.
I just wanted to provide a couple of additional updates. So Debbie Toth, our CEO, sends out an update every Monday, and in today's update, she let us know. So a lot of our staff, our program staff that work with our participants, have now been trained with additional PPEs from Contra Costa Health Services. So we are going to be sending, at least starting out, I believe, our physical therapists first to the homes, because we have heard a number of stories about people really needing help, needing PT so they don't fall, and having more, direct contact when we can. So that's good. And our preschool Choice in Learning, our Montessori preschool, is doing something like 7 Zoom classes a day with our preschool students. So they're not idle. The teachers are still teaching. There's one class on Tuesdays, which is yoga. It's for the kids, but the parents are participating as well. So it's a lot of people are being able to take advantage of it. So we're just doing the best we can. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, Mary?
We've been delivering lunches for Meals on Wheels and some of our clientele, and 2 of our drivers have done a substantial amount of grocery shopping for people and delivery. And I'm sure other senior centers are doing this, but ours is also offering classes on Zoom. And people have a real hunger to connect and talk and catch up. And so I think Zoom is an ideal method for that. I'm hoping we can do more.
Thank you. Let's see, Paolo?
Nothing to add at this time, thanks.
Okay. Let's see here. I'm not sure if there's, did I miss somebody? Rashida?
Yeah, but I don't have any.
Oh, there's.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add at this time.
Okay. Anybody else?
Dow Jelly.
Okay. I don't know why your name didn't appear.
Well, I've been in the meeting since the beginning.
You've been so quiet, but I don't know why. I'm looking at the participant list and your name is not here. Well, would you like to say something?
Yes, I'm very impressed
there
as
you
a, hello?
Your name appeared.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm very impressed with Tri-Delta in terms of the fixed route and the cab service and the paratransit. It's worked out very well for my needs at this time. My only comment, and I'm very concerned that almost everybody seems to be in agreement, that Zoom is the way to go in the future. And all I can say is from an education perspective, because I still do some work in that area, that the kids in our programs that I'm involved with are getting tired of it. They want person-to-person contact. And I certainly don't agree with those that feel that this should be the future. This is an emergency. We need to use this if we have an emergency, but I certainly would not recommend once the emergency is over, we need to continue with face-to-face meetings. Thank you.
Vi?
I don't have any updates this time. Thank you.
Okay. Did I miss anybody? The names keep moving around, so this didn't work as well as I thought it would. Okay, I think we got everybody. Oh, there's another person on the list. Jay Domingo? Jay Domingue?
Yeah, hi, I'm with the Office for Consumer Empowerment. I work on the Overcoming Transportation Barriers project.
Mm-hmm.
And I was late, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Would you like to add anything at this time?
No, thanks.
Okay, well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone that I might have missed? Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which are reports. There is no Service Advisory Committee report. Is there a Senior Mobility Action Council report?
Yes, so this coming Monday at 10 o'clock, we're having a speaker on a kind of information about preparing people on how to vote for the Uber Lyft proposition as to whether they should remain contractors or become employees. So there was some interest in that topic. We will be preparing our accomplishments and goals report for the Advisory Council on Aging. And we hope to have a transportation infographic ready by the end of the year.
Thank you. So do you, I don't know if your agency can take a position on that measure that you were just talking about, or are you just presenting pros and cons?
Well, somebody asked for an informational presentation, so it would not be promoting one side or the other.
So it would be pros and cons.
It would just be information for people
Yeah.
to help them make up their mind.
Uh-huh.
What I'm unclear about is the commercials I see about it are all supportive of Uber and Lyft remaining as contractors. I haven't really heard anybody speaking to the other side, so I don't even know if there is another side from the driver's point of view.
I have a question for Mary.
Go
Madam
ahead.
Chair.
Yes, please go
Yeah.
ahead.
Mary, this is going to be at 10 o'clock on what date?
On Monday, September 28th.
And how would I click into that?
If you give me your email, I will include you.
Okay. Pellosmith@gmail.com. Pello, P-E-L-L-O Smith @gmail.com.
Okay, I will send you an invitation.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Member Bruns, if you want to send me, Fifi, the information, I'm happy to forward it to the entire committee.
Okay, I will send it to you.
Do you have anything else, Mary?
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for your report. The next item on the agenda is correspondence and communications. Do any committee members want to add a topic to our future agenda? Does anybody have anything in mind? I would think we would want to continue the item where where people were talking about what they were doing. They call the one called, where is it? The operators update on the current services provided during COVID. Do you have any, Peter, that you think will be on our next agenda?
Fifi and I usually go over reoccurring stuff that happens during the year, and I don't think we've done that yet. So
Okay,
We may have some items that just move forward. We'll have to see
Wait.
when you like the chair, vote for the new chair and all that.
One thing you haven't, I don't believe talked about is funding for Measure C,
Oh.
for Measure J,
Okay. Yeah, I can do that.
which is down, I assume, right?
Yeah, it's down, but we don't know exactly how much yet. I'll get an update from our finance manager. That'll be good timing because I'll be doing the second half of the year allocations in January to our board. So I should have some numbers. Hopefully I'll be able to give you some numbers, good news numbers.
That would be really nice.
Yep.
Let's see, is there anything else that we can think of right now? Okay. I think we've kind of covered future, well, maybe we haven't. Future agenda items, are there items in the future, but way into the future more? So we're not aware of it. Okay, so I think we're ready for adjournment, and I think we're a little tiny bit early, but I think we've covered everything unless somebody wants to bring up something else. Go back to an agenda item. Not hearing any. The meeting is adjourned, and thank you all for participating in this meeting.